What's up, you guys? It's your boy Next, back with another video. In today's video, we're gonna be reacting to a video called "Why is Tobey Maguire Spider-Man the best Spider-Man?" Honestly, I don't know which one out of the three is the best. I like all of them. I grew up with Tobey Maguire, even though his movies can be kind of campy, but they came out in 2000. What can you respect? Andrew he wasn't able to reach his full potential, but he was great as Spider-Man also. And then I forgot his name. Zendaya's boyfriend. I forgot his name. Tom Holland. Yeah, all his movies is pretty good. But I think his movies got even better because he was in the MCU. He had so many other superheroes and storylines around him. It just made his story even that much more interesting. But let's get right into the video. Let me make my video capture smaller. You already know. And let's see what's going on.
Every Spider-Man movie series has a different flavor. That's not what I'm talking about. Every Spider-Man series has a different feeling. There's a vibe and a tone that comes specifically to each movie adaptation of the webhead. It's not just the writing of these films that makes them the way they are. It's the visuals, the costumes they pick for their characters, the camera movements, the character arcs, the changes they make to the source material. And today, I'm going to be starting part 1 of a 3-part series detailing the flavor of each Spider-Man movie series by going over what I think about them, of course, starting with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are a lot of people's first introductions to the character of Spider-Man, including my own. And I'm happy that this is the movie that introduced me and so many young people to Spider-Man, because it is by far the most accurate movie adaptation of Spider-Man you can get out of the different 3 live-action ones. First off, Sam Raimi was a massive fan of the older Spidey comics. Venom almost wasn't adapted because Sam Raimi didn't want to put a character in a movie that he did not understand. That alone should tell you that Sam Raimi isn't going to fuck around with the source material very much. So let's get to what Sam Raimi gets right by listing all of the accurate things his movie series does, while also going more in depth into each accurate thing just to discuss how these bits contribute to the flavor of the movies. Peter's origin is almost entirely intact, with him still becoming a wrestler for just one match and whooping a giant wrestler's ass.
Do you want a satisfying, remote-friendly job that pays well? Become a software engineer in only...
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
Points off for the homophobia. That's not very accurate of you, Peter. This adaptation is just missing the part where Peter becomes a massive TV celebrity as Spider-Man before becoming a superhero. But honestly, I think if it showed up in Spider-Man 1, it wouldn't have really been that necessary. I think him just being a wrestler and immediately jumping to the death of Uncle Ben, I think you sort of get the point. You don't really need to see him become a TV star. I actually showed off Peter's time as a TV star to some of my fans during a live stream, and I remember many of them not even knowing that this was a thing that happened. But despite Raimi not including it, I don't think any other adaptation goes as far in terms of correctly adapting Peter's origin as Raimi did. Peter works at the Daily Bugle, and almost all of the important characters from the Bugle are present. J. Jonah Jameson being played by J.K. Simmons is quite literally my top comic book casting of all time. It's not a Spider-Man, it's not a superhero of any kind, it's a side character. J. Jonah Jameson is probably the best cast actor for a comic book role ever.
It's funny because he don't even play a superhero, but it's so true.
Anyway, everyone in the Bugle does a really good job playing their part. The Daily Bugle used to have some really funny moments happening in the comics, and I'm really glad to see how present the comedy is within the walls of this building. The way it usually works is that J. Jonah Jameson is the star of the show. Whether he's happy, upset, or furious, his performance is what all the other actors in the scene have to revolve around. You have Robbie Robertson, who's always playing the straight man, and is just trying to keep Jameson from flying off the handle, and I'm also pretty sure he knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Then there's Betty Brant, who acts like Jameson's
In the Tobey Maguire series, he knows? Let me know in the comments. If he does, that's crazy.
secretary and is always phoning into his office to annoy him with something he needs to do. I like to think that she only makes it seem like she's doing her job, but she knows how annoying she can be and secretly finds it hilarious. She likes drama. Okay, so you pretty much have everyone who's required.
My ex, she liked drama.
Erratic boss, the straight man, and the mischievous secretary.
Not awesome.
But what if I told you that the best character in the Bugle is one that isn't even from the comics? Ted Hoffman might be my
Bro, they just rizzed each other up.
favorite character because I have such a preference towards the nerdy and weird characters in my media, but I love him all the same. His constant need to be praised by Jonah is hilarious because it usually ends up angering Jonah even more. I love him so much, and I just wish he was a real character. Mary Jane lives right next to Peter and regularly suffers from an abusive family. I don't really have much else to say about this other than that it's comic.
Hey, Mary Jane, I'm sorry for all the pauses. I'm gonna stop pausing so much. But Mary Jane, she was so toxic in the Sam Raimi series. In every movie, y'all could literally fact check this. In every movie she was in, she cheated on her boyfriend she was with in that movie. The first movie, she cheated on Harry. The second movie, she cheated on Peter. The third movie, I don't even know, bro. It's funny.
Accurate? I'm
Toxic.
so sorry about your childhood abuse, but can you please stop cheating on people? Peter Parker sometimes narrates over the plot with his own thoughts, which is exactly what he does in the comics. I really love when superhero movies and media feature the character narrating over what's happening. It's such a common thing in superhero comics, as it's usually one of the only ways to, narrate. I think one of the reasons Spectacular Spider-Man did such a good job with Spider-Man and really making him as accurate as possible is because they really let you live in his head a lot. He was constantly talking and narrating and thinking about his day as he was swinging around the city and talking out his own thoughts. It's a very easy way to make the viewer attached to a character. Attaching you to Peter is one of the best things these movies do. Anyway, that's just a couple of things that I think makes the Raimi franchise as a whole the most accurate movie take on Spider-Man so far. You can argue that Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker himself, isn't the most accurate Spider-Man, but as of right now, I'm currently arguing that his universe, the one that he lives within, is the most accurate to the source material.
I think Tobey's the best Peter. I think Andrew's the best Spider-Man, but I think Tom Holland brings a little bit the best of both worlds. And he's just like, if you mix them both, and that makes Tom Holland so good. I think all of them good.
And that's not really debatable when you compare all the other Spider-Man movie worlds to the one in the comics. Tobey Maguire's is the closest thing you're gonna get. There are some small things that detract from its accuracy though, like for example, Peter having the power to make webs on command, or Mary Jane becoming a love interest before Gwen. I don't really think its detractors will ever be anywhere as near as inaccurate as having Tony Stark back up Spider-Man's early years, or having the first Green Goblin as Harry Osborn, or anything crazy like that. Alright, so we've already established that the comic accuracy is a huge part of the world that the Raimi's movies create. So let's talk about Peter himself. Peter is a huge fucking dork in these movies, and everyone who can bully or shit on Peter usually does. And this continues even after he becomes Spider-Man. But the thing is, unlike the comics, Peter doesn't really have any pent-up rage towards the world like he does in the material. While his hot-headedness is surely missed, and its absence makes Tobey less accurate as Peter, this lack of anger towards his bullies can surely get much worse than this. Show a picture of Tom Holland. But the thing is, I think this certain Peter should be really angry at the world. Especially after everything that happens to Peter in Spider-Man 2. This man just takes so much shit with a smile. At least this movie adapted his signature Parker look.
He like, bro, I was gonna eat that.
Right. Something I really like about the origin story movie for Peter, Spider-Man 1, is specifically his final conversation with Uncle Ben. Peter is just straight up being a dick to Ben, as he relays his signature phrase onto him. But when Ben is killed by Peter's act of selfishness, it makes it even more painful because of how abrasive Peter was to him the last time he saw him. It's almost like whenever Ben Parker utters the word responsibility, he's on a timer. This final angry confrontation is a perfect example of how to change comic book media to be better by adding things to the book to help the book with what it was already doing instead of just changing the entire thing. Honestly, Uncle Ben's death is handled here way better than it is in TASM. I really love TASM, but the Uncle Ben death scene really just makes Uncle Ben's death seem like an unfortunate, accidental circumstance as opposed to it being a direct act of Peter's dickishness. Anyway, I'm sure many of you comment warriors have already gone to battle down below due to my constant comparisons towards other movies. But hurry up and come back up here because I'm about to shit on Tobey for a second. Why can't you keep your fucking mask on? Oh my god, holy shit, this man is infamous for taking his mask off where people could fucking see him. Here he is.
This is the days before social media, though. So I think, like, if Spider-Man really existed in our world, let's say 2000, if he did it too much, of course, eventually people will find out who he is. But if he only did it in like really fast instances, then he probably wouldn't be able to get caught.
Fucking is literally driving a car at ground fucking level in the Spider-Man suit with his mask off. He just finished stealing that car from two thieves as Spider-Man, and then later pulls up to a populated area in that same car as Peter Parker to MJ's performance, which he is expected to be at as Peter. Bro, the feds definitely know that this man is Spider-Man. This is some horse shit. I'm so glad this whole film is set in the 2000s, because if people had smartphones back in the day, this man would be fucked.
He would be cooked, bro. But you know what instantly everybody would know he's freaking Superman? Well, I just said him, Superman. Everybody would instantly know he's Superman if he was real.
Speaking of the 2000s, I love the vibe that comes with this film, especially the first one. I think the culture of the 2000s is just out of reach of today's, and that watching this movie now makes it feel like it's much older than it really is. But to dial back for a second, I want to talk about how Spider-Man 1 sets up the question Spider-Man 2 asks about Peter Parker. Spider-Man 1 ends with the Goblin's funeral, and Harry is furious that his father was taken from him by Spider-Man. Even though Peter won and beat the Goblin, the people around him have still suffered, and he knows this, which is exactly why he denies MJ when she professes his love to him. Fuck bitches, be Spider-Man. Denying MJ was something Peter really did to keep her safe. He really did love her with all of his heart, but he really can't be with her because of the risk that would be put in her path by him being Spider-Man. And the movie ends. And some of you might have asked, what the fuck? Why would he say no to her? Why would he still be Spider-Man after all of this suffering? He lost his uncle, his best friend lost his fucking father, and he said no to the love of his life over Spider-Man? Why would Peter be Spider-Man if being Spider-Man actively ruins his life? Why the fuck would he do that?
Right, let's film this on the Zenfone. I actually have
because the world needs Spider-Man.
So you might have heard me talking about the opera.
The entire point of Spider-Man 2 is to ask why the fuck Peter Parker would continue to be Spider-Man when being Spider-Man actively makes his life so much worse than it already is. And that's why I love this movie. The movie immediately starts off with this scene as Peter being inconvenienced by being Spider-Man. He loses his job as a pizza boy within the first 10 minutes of the movie by being late to his job because he was too busy being Spider-Man. Then he finally makes it home, and he's greeted by a surprise party for him from Aunt May, Harry, and MJ that he didn't even know was today because he's been so run down. He's greeted by a room filled with people who have all been hurt by Spider-Man in some way. Aunt May lost her perfect and loving husband in a tragic and senseless killing that Peter could have prevented. Harry's father was killed in a battle with Spider-Man. MJ was turned down by Peter because of his need to be Spider-Man. Even Peter himself has been hurt by this need. He's late for class every day. He's lost his job, his uncle. His relationship with those around him have been strained. Hell, even his powers have stopped working. You know what? Why is Peter Spider-Man? He doesn't even know himself. Peter revisits the moment that made him want to be Spider-Man in the first place. Peter's last talk with Ben. Ben tries to reach out to Peter with his great words of wisdom, just as he did the day he died. But just as he didn't on that day, Peter won't listen to him. Peter couldn't find the reason in his great words. The price he paid for being Spider-Man has already taken too much of a toll on him. He quits, and Spider-Man is no more. And there's only one man who can bring him back. Dr. Octopus, man. I love the way he's handled in this movie, especially since the writers decided to go for a more sympathetic take on the character. Originally, Otto Octavius was only Doc Ock because he was blown up in a radiation accident. A radiation accident while wearing his arms, which caused...
In superhero comics, wow, how people get powers is always something radioactive. Like, Joker became the Joker because he got through in radioactive, whatever, liquid. Freaking, who else? It was a bunch of other people, but there's always something radioactive. It's so cliche.
Caused him to go on an insane power trip. But this Otto had integrity before the accident. He had a purpose. He believed that intelligence was a gift, one to be used for the good of mankind. This purpose is almost a perfect parallel to Peter's. With great power comes great responsibility, but instead, it's great intelligence that comes great responsibility. It's only when his arms take over his mind and he loses his loving wife because his machine fails that he becomes vulnerable enough to give in to that evil. He isn't even trying to be entirely evil either. He may be robbing banks and dropping Aunt May off of buildings, but in the end he's still doing this in order to finish building his machine. Also, I want to bring up that fight scene where Spider-Man is fighting Doc Ock all while trying to save Aunt May, just so it's fresh in your mind because it's going to be important in a couple of minutes. But anyway, back to Peter's struggle as Spider-Man. He's quit. It's over. But only because he doesn't know why he should continue to be Spider-Man if it keeps making the lives of the people around him much worse. But even if he isn't Spider-Man anymore, he still wants to make amends for what he's done. He goes to Aunt May, and he tells her something he could have never done with the weight of Spider-Man still being on his shoulders. He tells her that it was his fault that Uncle Ben died in one of the most completely heartbreaking scenes in the movie. The camera is super close to Aunt May and Peter's faces. There's no music playing, so you can focus on the raw emotions of the actors, and it's still painful to watch to this day. So Peter's completely tapped out at this point. He's not Spider-Man anymore, and that's it. He's aired his conscience out to the world, and from now on, Peter Parker will live as a normal and boring human being without any heroism. Without Spider. Yeah, so then he sees an apartment on fire and immediately decides to run inside to save people without his powers. He knows he could have died, and the viewer knows it too. Peter barely makes it out of the building without dying. The floors are collapsing under him. He's struggling to break down doors. Peter barely makes it. And just as one of the firefighters congratulate him for his bravery, Peter overhears another firefighter telling someone that a person was trapped on the 4th floor, and they died. The camera pans over to Peter's face, and I feel like this is the movie's way of hinting at you, oh man, Peter totally could have saved that guy if he was still Spider-Man. But he wasn't. And Peter might have been thinking this too. So, confused as to if really quitting was the right choice, Peter goes back to Aunt May's, and she has some time to think about his last visit. Aunt May tells him that she forgives him, and when Spider-Man comes up in conversation, Aunt May has something to say. Aunt May has changed her mind about Spider-Man. She used to think he was a horrible, creepy man, but after he saved her life, she's changed her mind. And she definitely knows Peter is Spider-Man now. Like, oh my god, this woman makes it blatantly obvious that she knows. There's a hero in all of us, Aunt May.
Nah, who remember Aunt May in the first Beyond, was it Beyond? No, Into the Spider-Verse movie. She was a G.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
At University of Maryland Global Campus, getting a bachelor's degree doesn't have to mean starting...
Anyway, Aunt May delivers an inspiring speech about how important heroes are and how they inspire each and every person to hold on to hope for just a little longer. And Peter takes this message to heart. He knows why he has to be Spider-Man again. He climbs up onto a rooftop to attempt to leap and bound over buildings just as he once did before, and he busts his fucking ass on the concrete. See, Peter might know why he needs to be Spider-Man, but he just doesn't understand why he needs to be Spider-Man yet. Anyway, do you remember how I said that Dr. Octopus was the only man that could bring back Spider-Man? Yeah, so anyway, Doc Ock kidnaps Mary Jane, and in this moment, Peter starts to understand why he needs to be Spider-Man again, so he can protect the ones he loves. And with that, his powers come back, and he chases after Doc Ock. Also, to cut in for a bit, I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite parts in the movie. Jameson realizing that Spider-Man is the only hero who could have saved MJ now that she's been kidnapped by Doc Ock, and then immediately realizing that Spider-Man might have actually been a hero, and he was the one that was wrong. Only for Peter to steal his discarded suit from Jameson, causing him to flip back into hating Spider-Man. That's definitely one of my favorite scenes in this entire trilogy. Seeing Jameson finally forego his hate for Spider-Man, only to immediately change his mind when Spider-Man finally comes back, is the final switch that clicks in your mind and makes you go, fuck yeah, Spider-Man is definitely back now. You can't have Spider-Man unless Jameson's out there screaming at him somehow. So anyway, Doc Ock and Spider-Man's fight has now been moved onto a moving train. People are in danger, and not only does Spider-Man have to fight off Doc Ock, he has to protect the people on the train too. So when Doc Ock sets the train to fly off the tracks, Peter has to use all of his power to stop the train from flying off the rails and killing everyone inside. Peter's mask is damaged in the struggle with Doc Ock, and his face is exposed to everyone inside. It's not Spider-Man that the people see saving them. It's some average, regular-looking guy. So when the people of New York see that Peter has given it his all, the train has stopped and they've all been saved, and Peter can't do anything but collapse due to tiredness, they catch him, and they bring him into the train with them. As they all make comments about how As they all make comments on how shocked they are to see that it has been a normal man who has come to their rescue time and time again, Peter wakes up. He sees that everyone can see his face, and he panics, but the people reassure him that it's going to be okay. They now know the weight of his responsibility, and they wouldn't dare make his job harder. And this is the moment that Peter fully understands why he needs to be Spider.
I ain't gonna lie, like, this scene is more beautiful than what I remember. It's a great scene to have for a hero.
Spider-Man. He understands that Aunt May was right. He inspired everyone on that train to be their best selves and gave them hope as he saved their lives. Peter brought out the hero in all of them. And with that, Spider-Man 2 answers the question. Why would Peter Parker want to be Spider-Man if it constantly ruins his life? Because being Spider-Man is more important than Peter Parker's life. There are thousands of people who need saving every day, and going out and being that hero, even if it means that it gets in the way of his own life, will always bring out the good in people inspired by his actions. And that will always be more important. And that's everything I wanted to cover about the Raimi movies. This movie was just me wanting to cover my favorite part about them, and that part happens to be how well they are written and the plots they cover and the arcs and the characters and stuff. And you know, that's all I have to talk about. There's nothing else at all.
Okay, so I'm actually not going to watch the second half of the video because you already know what movie he's going to talk about. He's going to be talking about Spider-Man 3. But I'm going to end this video right here because I don't want this video to end up being too long. If you like this video, make sure you check out the creator. Let me go back to the page real quick. This is the creator, so subscribe to this channel and like the video if you're interested. And subscribe to my channel and like the video. I like doing comic book videos and stuff. I'm just starting this channel and y'all been showing love, so I thank you guys for everything. And just have a good day. Peace, y'all.